Hey, everybody. I don't know what happened to me there. I'm taking you behind the scenes a little bit, right? I wear suspenders every day, and I was like, you know what? Let the audience see my suspenders. I'm going suspenders out right now for today's podcast. What do you think of that? If you don't like it, screw you. If you like it, if you don't really care, which probably most of you is the case, I don't know. Anyway, a lot to get to on today's podcast. I did not do a podcast on Tuesday because I'm actually doing two podcasts on Thursday. I'm going to do my regular podcast, and then I'm doing a bonus podcast. I'm going to sit down with my buddy Chris Fedor. We're going to break down where the Cavs are at the quarter pole of the season. So we'll have an AM and a PM podcast on Thursday. But for today, it's the last day of November. There's more leaves on the tree in my backyard than I've ever seen to end the month. It's November 30th, 2022. On today's show, I'm going to spend pretty much the entire show talking about Deshaun Watson, both on and off the field. It is a complicated subject. I'm going to try to handle it as delicately as possible and keep it as real. I say keep it as real as possible. That's all I do is keep it real. So we're going to have a real frank conversation about Deshaun Watson off the field, as much as we know, and Deshaun Watson on the field, as much as we know, which is nothing because he hasn't played in 2 years, at least nothing as a Cleveland Brown. That's all coming up on this Wednesday edition of The Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the Bullpen with Adam the Bull.
So it's been a while since the Browns made a trade for Deshaun Watson from the Houston Texans. A lot's been said, a lot's been written, a lot's been talked about. But what hasn't happened is Deshaun Watson hasn't played. Yeah, he played a handful of plays in a meaningless preseason game. But he hasn't played in a regular season game in 1 month short of a calendar year. When he takes the field on December 4th, it'll be the first time he played in a game since January 4th of 2021. That is exactly 23 months without playing football. What will he look like on the field? I'll get to that later. But I want to start with off the field. You know, yesterday it was announced that a bunch of the women who accused Deshaun Watson and essentially settled, because I think all of them settled, well, not all, but most of them settled out of court on a financial agreement, are going to the Texans game where Deshaun Watson will make his debut. And this had me scratching my head. And I tweeted out, why would the women choose to go to the game? Bizarre. So the responses to that were, as I expected. A lot of people, especially in Cleveland, a lot of people saying they're just showing they care about the money. This is all a fraud. This is it. And then the other part of this is, a strong defense of them. Now, I wasn't judging them for going. I just thought it was bizarre. It felt to me like they were being used by their lawyer. Tony Busby seems to be a sleazy guy. Now, Deshaun Watson seems to be a sleazy guy, too. And that's what I want to talk about. I've talked about this before. Not in every walk of life, whether it's your office, politics, certainly, athletes, fire department, police officers, radio, TV, teachers, whatever. We could go on and on. I believe, right, and I think this is pretty much true. I think most people would agree with this, that most of the people in every profession are basically good people. What percentage that is, who knows? But I think the majority in any walk of life are going to be basically good people. Doesn't mean they don't do stupid things, as I have done and probably you have done. Doesn't mean we haven't done very questionable things. It might not even mean they haven't committed some sort of crime at some point in their life. I believe most people are basically good. Not all, but a good majority. Okay, now, there is going to be, in every walk of life, some sleazebags. Okay? Now, but sports is weird because we don't collect baseball cards for teachers. We don't collect baseball cards for insurance salesmen or accountants or police officers. But we collect cards when we're kids for athletes. We, in a way, look up to athletes. We may look up to other professions. We may look up to a police officer. But unless we know a specific police officer, you don't. It's kind of just a nameless job, right? We may look up to people in the military, right? Have respect for what they do. But unless you know somebody personally, that there's not like, oh, that Sergeant Joe Schmo, I don't know Joe Schmo. I don't even know that of his existence unless I know the person personally. But sports is different because everybody's out there. We have rooting interests. The guys are on our team. We love them. Guys are on the other team. We hate them. We may respect them. We hate them, maybe not in a malicious way, but we hate them like we, in a sports way. And sports fans understand that. Sometimes you say you hate somebody, you don't wish them to die or ill will or anything like that. You just hate them in a sports context. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that way. So I don't have to love everybody on my team. I don't know these guys personally, right? I have covered the Browns for 12 years. I don't know any of the players personally. I've had conversations with a player or two. I know some guys a little tiny bit. Not really the active players. I don't really know those guys at all. I know some of the retired players a little more. But in terms of the active players, most people don't know them personally. Right? If you're not in the building in Berea or Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or Baltimore, we may love these guys. We may hate these guys. We don't know these guys. There are some people that do to some degree, but for the most part, those of us who talk about them, those of us who watch them, those of us who write about them, we don't know these guys that well, if at all. So when things happen, we and it's it's easy to say, well, don't judge, let the court decide, let this. We all judged, right? That's to some degree. I say I'm not judging the women going to Houston, but I guess in a way, if I think about it, maybe I am a little bit. Okay? I don't think it makes them less credible that they're going, but I can understand why some people might think that way because it seems odd. That's not fair, but that's how it is. Perception can be reality. Another part of this is, and we all do this in sports. I'm not just putting this on Browns fans. This is every fan base does this. We defend our guys sometimes to a fault. I don't know what happened between Deshaun Watson and these 20-something accusers. I don't know. You don't know. So when you react and say, he's innocent, he's railroaded, when others might say, he's the worst person on the face of the earth, none of you know. We all have our opinions, and my opinion has remained the same. Do I think Deshaun Watson is completely innocent? How could I? How could any reasonable person think that Deshaun Watson is completely innocent? Maybe you can. I can't. Okay? I don't know exactly what he did. I know that it appears nothing he did was criminal. He settled out of court with most of the women. I think there's one, maybe two cases that are still out there. And I said when they made this move, when everything got hashed out and after the settlements, I've continued to say it. I don't have to like Deshaun Watson as a person. Again, I don't know him. I don't have to think he's a good guy. That doesn't mean I have to stop wanting the Browns to win or whatever team you root for. I'm sure most of the guys on the Browns are good guys. I'd be stunned if I heard anything bad about Nick Chubb and many of the other players on the team. So I can love Nick Chubb and still want to, and maybe not love Deshaun Watson and still see him want to play well or want to see him play well. I am excited to see Deshaun Watson play, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I obviously am appalled by what he's accused of. If he had been charged with a crime and been thrown in jail because he did whatever, I would not be fighting for him and pretending there was some great conspiracy. But the courts decided there was no crime. Or there was not enough evidence to prove there was a crime. The women settled with him, and he was suspended, essentially did his time from the league. He is allowed to play. I'm not going to get in the podcast. I'm not getting on the radio, the TV, anything. I'm going to tell you, Deshaun Watson did nothing. I don't believe that. I don't know what he did. And he's on the field. I'm not going to be guilted into to wanting him to do bad. If you don't want to watch the Browns, that's fine with me. If you have friends that say they're not going to watch, if there are strangers on Twitter who say, Deshaun Watson's disgusting, I don't want to watch him play, it's stupid for you to fight with him. You don't, first of all, you don't know any more than they do. The idea that 20 some odd women conspired to make up a story is too unrealistic. You know, we're very comfortable throwing out conspiracy theories these days. We lose, we say we didn't lose. No, you lost. Right? You lost. If you're crying you were going to lose an election for 6 months, if you lost, they cheated against you, and then you lost, and now you're saying you cheated, well, you outed yourself already. Nobody cheated you. You lost the election. We used to just admit that. Now, most people do, but some don't. Those people all lost their elections. They know it, and any reasonable person does. Same thing here. It's impossible to believe that these 20-some-odd women conspired against Deshaun Watson. That's not realistic to believe. It is possible that some of them, some 1, 2, 5, I don't know, jumped on the bandwagon and maybe don't have a legit case. That's possible to believe. I'm not saying I do or don't. I don't believe that it's possible that 20-something women all made this up, some great conspiracy, and it never got out. That's impossible to believe. And again, you as a Browns fan, or because you maybe have an agenda, you're going to talk yourself into believing what you want. I probably can't convince you. We all take our camps just like we do in politics. Once we take our camps on something, whether it's politics, whether it's sports, too often it doesn't matter. The facts could be in your face. You're going to ignore them. You don't care. No reasonable person could believe that Deshaun Watson is 100% innocent. That doesn't mean he did anything criminally wrong necessarily, but to think that he did nothing inappropriate at all, it's not realistic, and any reasonable person knows that. Now, some people are going to get mad that I'm saying that. That's how I feel. It seems pretty obvious to me. Just like no reasonable person could believe that when you lose elections by millions of votes, people cheated. That's not reasonable either. This is America. Just because you lose, you can't cry and want to take your ball home. You know that. Any reasonable person knows that. So I think I think the arguments about this are stupid. I'm even sorry I put up that tweet yesterday because it led to arguments that I got roped into. I didn't even get involved in the argument. He's innocent. He's not. And you're both wrong. And you're both right. For me, I wouldn't buy my son a Deshaun Watson jersey. I wouldn't do it. I at one point I said I might, but I don't know why I said that because I wouldn't. And I don't have to love Deshaun Watson because there's plenty of guys at the Browns that I do love. And like I said, I don't really know them. And maybe down the line I'll find out a guy I thought was a great guy wasn't. I don't know. I as a kid, one of my favorite baseball players was Mark Grace, Cubs first baseman. He was one of my favorite players. I played first base. I was a lefty as a kid. When I was a kid, I thought I'd be playing Major League Baseball. Obviously, I wasn't good enough. Loved Mark Grace. And then when I was 17 or 18, I met him. Man, he wasn't nice. Now, that doesn't mean he's not a nice guy. He wasn't nice to me. My interaction with him was not nice. And since then, he's said some dopey things over the years. Doesn't mean he's necessarily a bad guy, but I don't feel the same way about him. From that moment on, when I met him when I was a teenager, I never felt the same way about him. So I don't have a warm feeling about Deshaun Watson, but I am excited to watch him play, and I won't apologize for that, and neither should you. But just be careful and keep it real and be realistic about what really happened here. All right? We need to get rid of all these stupid conspiracy theories that people are so comfortable throwing around. Idiocy. There was a movie years ago called Idiocracy. And it was funny because everybody was so stupid in it that was running the country. And unfortunately, we've been living that all too close. All right, enough of the serious stuff. Take a break. When I come back, we'll talk about what kind of impact Deshaun Watson is going to have on the field. That's next, right here. But first, betonline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. On the field, what kind of difference is Deshaun Watson going to make? Now, part of this is we don't know what Deshaun Watson we're getting. Deshaun Watson, for the most part, when he's been on the field, has always been great. You know, yesterday on the TV show, somebody brought up Michael Vick. It might have been me even. You know, because he got booed like crazy, like Watson's going to get, and he missed a couple of years. And also, I think Jay brought up Russell Wilson, brought up Baker Mayfield in terms of guys who were really good, and then they went off the map. Who knows? Now, in the end, none of these comparisons are perfect. Michael Vick is a good comparison in terms of time off and booing, but Michael Vick was a little older, and Michael Vick wasn't the quality of quarterback that Deshaun Watson is, in my opinion. Russell Wilson's not a good comparison because he's older, and there were signs of decline last year. And Baker's not a good example at all because Baker had been inconsistent his whole career, and his best was nowhere close to Deshaun Watson's best. Deshaun Watson in Houston, with not a lot of talent around. Now, early in his career, obviously, he had DeAndre Hopkins, who's a phenomenal player, but he never had a good offensive line. He never had a good running game. He put up huge numbers. Did he win enough? No. Was it all on him? Definitely not. Can you get a pass when you're the quarterback? No. Deshaun Watson led the league the last time he was on the field in 2020 in passing yards with 4,823. He led the league in yards per attempt. He's also been sacked a billion times because he played behind a terrible offensive line. Deshaun Watson's been sacked 174 times in 53 NFL starts. That's about 3.5 sacks per start. That's awful. He will not get sacked that often in Cleveland. He never had a good running game. And yet, despite all of that, he completed 68% of his passes in the NFL, closer to 70% if you take out his half-rookie year. He's thrown 104 touchdowns and 36 picks. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. Very good. Deshaun Watson, the PFF grades, I mean, anything you look at, the guy's a great player. However, as I said, he hasn't played for 23 months. Will there be rust? Will there be, I guess we just could encompass any struggles. just will there be an adjustment to game speed? Will there be adjustment to, like, as a quarterback, your brain has to work fast, right? You have to see things, and that gets better with time. The good quarterbacks, football smarts, get better as the years go by. They learn more as they go. And that's going to be something that Deshaun Watson hasn't had to deal with in 2 years. I don't know how that's going to be a factor for him, too. Now, the good news is he's still a very young guy. He turned 27 in September. So there's no reason to believe that Deshaun Watson won't have all the skills he had when we last saw him on the field. It also means, and remember, he's never played with any of these guys before. Never. I'm ignoring 5 preseason snaps in which he didn't play with a lot of these guys anyway, or however many snaps it was. He's never played with these guys. He's practiced with them. He's never played. That makes a big difference. To think he's going to be perfect right off the bat is unrealistic. Now, he may be great. If you said to me, Bull, is Deshaun Watson going to be great? Is he going to be good? Is he going to be average? Is he going to be bad? He's going to be awful. If those are my 5 options, I'd say he's going to be good. He has the capability of being great. I don't think he's going to be great consistently the final 6 games of the season. I think it's an unrealistic expectation. He's very talented, but he hasn't played in 2 years. He's never played with these guys, and there's just so many things that go into it that it's hard to believe he's going to be magnificent right away. Now, this first game, you're playing the Texans. They're definitely the worst team in football, but he's going to also have to deal with the crowd, the emotions of that, how the Texans players are going to be affected by that. I don't know. My guess is there's not a lot of animosity toward Deshaun Watson from the players on the Texans, but I don't know. That's just a guess. So it's going to be fascinating to see. But here's what we do know. Deshaun Watson is way more talented than Jacoby Brissett. Deshaun Watson, once he's playing his best, which hopefully will happen again this year, and certainly it should happen by next year, is way better than Jacoby Brissett and way better than, frankly, any quarterback that I've ever seen play for the Browns. The skill set is through the roof. The talent is through the roof. Will he stay out of trouble off the field throughout the rest of his Browns career? Will he have lost anything from missing 2 years temporarily or permanently? All these things are unknown at this point. But you were out of the game, and now the Browns are in the game. You got to have this kind of quarterback. You got to have a top 10 caliber quarterback to be in the game, in my opinion. They are, or they should be, because he's been that kind of player. What we do know is Deshaun Watson being back, even if he's not at his best immediately, is going to make a big impact not only on the opposing teams, how they defend the Browns, but it should have an impact on the Browns defense as well. I'll talk about that next in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. Coming, folks. Coming back. All right. So here's the difference Deshaun Watson is going to make. Number one, as well as Jacoby Brissett played, it was clear, especially in the last month, that teams were completely selling out to try to stop Nick Chubb, which is still hard to do. Tampa Bay was unable to do it. Cincinnati was unable to do it. Buffalo and certainly Miami did a better job. 8 guys in the box, 9 guys in the box. Listen, Nick Chubb's still going to be a priority for defenses, especially until folks know what Deshaun Watson is. But you cannot stack the box the same way because Deshaun Watson could kill you with his legs too, which is a threat. But he can kill you with his arm. He has much more arm talent than Jacoby Brissett. There's no doubt about it. He is a much bigger threat. That's going to make the defense play and react differently. And because of his athletic ability, his ability to run. Now, he's not looking to run like there was some comparisons yesterday to Lamar Jackson and even Michael Vick. But Deshaun Watson, great athlete, can run. He's not looking like those guys look to run. Certainly Michael Vick did. Lamar looks to run. Not all the time, but he does. Deshaun Watson's looking to throw the ball. He's looking to move and use his athletic ability to at times get out of the pocket, but he keeps his eyes downfield, or he has. Now, maybe when he comes back, maybe if he's feeling a little rusty, maybe he'll be looking to run more, but he doesn't look to run as much as some of those other guys. But he can, and he's had some games where he's had 60 or 70 yards rushing, and I'm pretty sure he's never had a 100-yard rushing game. But clearly the guy's a great athlete, and has shown it time and time again in the past. But he is a threat, a much bigger threat, both running and passing than Jacoby Brissett. That's going to open things up defensively, open things up for Nick Chubb. And, if you're not stacking the box against Nick Chubb, you got no chance. So so even if they do stack the box as much, Deshaun Watson will kill him. He'll kill him. Maybe not as consistently right away, but eventually he will. So defenses are going to have a big problem because you got to stack the box to stop Nick Chubb, because you can't stop Nick Chubb unless you stack the box. You can't. But if you do that, Deshaun Watson's one of the best throwers of the football in the league, and he's going to kill you that way. The Browns offense, by next year, and certainly we'll see it at times down the stretch, the Browns offense has already been really good with Jacoby Brissett. This guy's a million times better. It's going to be great. Now, for the Browns defense, this is going to help too, because number one, you're not feeling as much pressure because you're going to be confident the offense could put up more points with a quarterback this good. Number two, and as part of that, you would think it would lead to more aggressiveness. We saw some of that against Tampa. We certainly saw it against Cincinnati. I would think that, and against Houston, they got a nice young running back named Dameon Pierce. We know Brandon Cooks is a decent wide receiver. They've got no quarterback. They've got nothing else. I mean, their offensive line's bad. I would expect the Browns defense to go out and be extremely aggressive this week. I could see Myles Garrett having like a 3-sack game. He's starting to kind of play his best football here. He had a big game last week. Huge plays. And I expect the Browns stars to do well, and that includes Deshaun Watson. I think he's going to have a really good game against this pathetic Texans team. I think he's going to want to shut them up. I think he's going to want to shut the fans up. But he's going to hear it. He's going to hear it everywhere he goes, and that's part of life. And we can whine and cry about it and say, you had Ben Roethlisberger, and you had Joe Mixon, and you had blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. We did it to them. They're going to do it to us. It's that simple. So get over it. All right, folks. On Friday, I'll talk more about the game itself against Houston and just how many points the Browns are going to win by. We'll do all the picks on Friday. Again, tomorrow, doing 2 shows. I'll have an AM podcast. I'll talk Thursday Night Football, start the breakdown of the Browns game, talk about the Cavs, who are playing tonight. Who are the Cavs playing tonight? I think they're playing Philly, right? Why can't I remember this? Yeah, they're playing the Sixers tonight, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. And then as part of that, I'll do a second podcast tomorrow. We'll do a PM podcast where I'll interview my buddy Chris Fedor from Cleveland.com. We'll talk about the Cavs, more about actually, I'll save all the Cavs stuff for then. We'll talk all Cavs with Chris, including the game with the Sixers and where the Cavs are at the basically the quarter pole of the season, right? I mean, pretty much tonight will be their 22nd game. So just past the quarter pole. Make sure you subscribe, become a member of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. If you join the $4.99, forget the $1.99 tier. The $4.99 tier, $4.99 a month, less than $60 a year. You get bonus content every day we do a show, or 98% of the days we do a show, and plus other benefits as well for being a member. Subscribe, hit the bell every time my podcast comes out, every time the show comes out. Bonus content, post-game shows. You'll get an alert letting you know we're there. Make sure you do that. And check out my website, AdamTheBull.com, Cameo at Adam the Bull, and my Twitter handle, as always, at Adam the Bull. Talk to you tomorrow for 2 podcasts tomorrow right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. See ya.